So, hello everyone at Taz Kantine. First of all, thank you to Luis Lago, who played a wonderful set here in the second row, played a wonderful set in the front part of Taz Kantine just now. And we are all ready to talk about community radios now. So first of all, I want to say a few words about the format. The format is called Lost and Found. It's supported by Taz Panter Foundation. And I think it fits perfectly because Taz Panter Foundation also tries to amplify voices which are underrepresented in the German media landscape. And beyond, like also internationally. And this year we're going to have a call for Taz Panter Freies for community media. So it's called Medien von unten this year. It's going to take place at Hamburger Medienwoche, and you can apply for this at the beginning of March. So yeah, check out the projects on taz.de/Stiftung. But now let's talk about today's topic, and I want to introduce my wonderful guests. Right next to me we have Nathalie Singer. She's a professor for experimental radio at Bauhaus-Universität and works in this field for over like 3 decades, I guess, and has worked both like in practical and theoretical field. And yes, you also worked for Deutschlandfunk, which is like the most popular radio station, I would say, like in Germany, the public broadcaster. Then I'm happy to invite Marianne, Ballé, Moudoumbou. Great that you joined. You're a board member of Freies Radio Potsdam, called Frapo. And furthermore, you also host a show there, the Pan-African radio program Moudoumbou, since 2016. Then next to Marianne, I have Laura Caprino, a journalist and a radio host who hosts the show Voices of Resilience at Refuge Worldwide, and has also been active at other, worked for other media outlets such as Wise, ID, or Billboard. And last but not least, Ayosha Kortlang. Great to have you here. You're a co-founder of THF Radio, and you try to involve like cultural work, collective radio practice, and physical locations. Such a nice get-together. I'm really happy. And the first question I want to address to you, Nathalie, because in a recent conversation you were asked to define radio or radiophonic art, and you said that it's even hard, like working 35 years in this field, to define it precisely, but maybe you can try once again for us.
How long we have? Well, the thing is that actually radio art is a hybrid. It's like between sound, music, text, documentary, and activism. So it's a little bit. It's in a lot of different domains. I would say that it's whenever artists take the medium of transmission or of the radio to express themselves. and it has also, of course, it's related always to the projection of listening spaces into foreign spaces, into far away spaces, something like this. But beside this, it's sound, and sound is not something which you can fix. So the radio art is not fixed, which is nice also. And yeah, I think as long as I'm in this field, as less I can define it, and I'm happy about it.
Yeah, great. Maybe the next question goes to Laura, because I'm interested, why did you choose the medium radio in the end to to present your show, Voices of Resilience? Why didn't you work like in a text format, or what do you think is special about radio also compared to other media?
I believe, oh, it's really loud. I believe that like a radio is a medium that allows a proximity to exist, and like it creates a sense of closeness and intimacy in the communication that you have with the audience. It goes beyond the idea of an abstract audience that you can like get immediate feedback, and also there's this beauty in the care and the love that you put into the building and the construction of a show, because you are carefully selecting something that people are going to listen to. People are like taking time away from their life to listen to, and it can make their day. It can like be informative, educational. It can like let them know about something that they never heard of. So I feel like the immediacy of a tool, a communication tool like radio, also kind of like slows down the rhythm of the urgency of the media cycle nowadays. And now everything is like very snackable, very like too fast, like the scrolling of how information is distributed. It really creates a bridge between, like in my head, like heart and people.
Maybe to add, because thank you that you remind me, the most important is the listening, actually, because it's the medium of the listening. So the radio teach listening, and listening teach a way of being together, which is special and different than audiovisual media. So this, yeah.
Yeah, thanks for adding this. And before we go a bit deeper into the topic, I want to like explain a little bit the background of radio, or like at least the technical basics. So that's why I brought you the sheet here. Like, I think a lot of you might be familiar with this, but I think even if a few of you are not, it might be worth to explain it. So in general, you have like two different types, the digital and the analog radio. And in the digital radio, you have the internet radio, which we have like 2, even 3 really good examples right here. So THF Radio, Refuge Worldwide, and also Frapo, they're all like broadcasting via internet. So you just go into your browser and then you have access. Then we have DAB, also a digital radio, but you need like a physical radio, so you need to go to a shop and buy it. Then you have access. But it's not the radio you might know from your grandparents, where you need to play around a little bit and find a stable connection. This is actually an analog radio, and the frequency modulation, so the FM in the part of analog radios. And then you also have AM, which is also quite interesting, because the main difference between AM and FM is that with AM you can broadcast worldwide. So you have actually the possibility to have access to radios like, for example, like Deutsche Welle, they broadcasted from Germany to the world, or BBC International. So yeah, I think it's quite interesting to have to remind that there are these different forms of radios in general. And I also, like, knowing this, I want to address the question to Marianne, because since January 2026, Freie Radios Berlin Potsdam can no longer received via FM, actually, because the broadcasting licenses for the frequencies 88.4 in Berlin and 90.7 in Potsdam were put on for a call, and now like the commercial radio Jazz FM and the internet radio Byte FM have these channels, or these frequencies. And the community radios in Berlin-Brandenburg can only be received via DAB and internet radio, actually. So why is this a problem?
Okay, good evening. It's great to be here first, so thank you for the invitation. And maybe to explain, to expand with a few words about what you've been saying about community radio. So this I've taken from Waves radio as collective imagination, and that says already a lot. It's written by and edited by Miss Reed and Labom Radio, and they say it's about a book, but it could very much apply to our work. in this publication, the social and political potentialities of online radio and audio practices are not merely discussed. They become the very fabric of the work, a living, breathing space for exploring new forms of collective organization. So that is it. You know, that is what also community radio means. And to give you an anecdote, when we started, a few years after we started Mboasu, which is the Pan-African radio program that was not here in this region. We started actually in the southern part of Germany, in Karlsruhe. And suddenly I was visiting a friend, and she embraces me and says, "Wow, I was so happy. For the first time, I heard Ndwala, which is our common language in that particular case, on radio. I could never imagine that I would hear a radio in my own language in the middle of Germany." And as you reminded me before, we've been broadcasting in I don't know how many languages, more than 30, because each time somebody has to convey a message in one of the African languages, in the Pan-African sense of the word, so maybe a language from anywhere. So this is as this dimension. When you're in your kitchen and you have easy access, because it's part of the charter of the free radios, that to have easy access to not only to information, but to your own expression. So you can be, on a bus, you can be, anywhere, and then you can listen. You don't have to buy whatever. You have the radio that you maybe have inherited from your grandparents or borrowed from the friend next door.
Yeah, and also you're also like a board member of Frappo. So do you have like certain demands now to the Medienanstalt Berlin-Brandenburg, or to take you back on the FM, for example?
Bring us back, yes, exactly. I'm part of also of the movement for restitution. So we say bring our entities back, and then bring us back, yes, on OKW. This is on FM is a very good idea. But not only that, we were talking about the charter of the non-commercial free radio. So that is this is a way to be inclusive, because we're talking about of course Radio Frappo, but we're talking about all our FRBB radio, as as a group that came together so that we could apply even to the frequency. So this is a way to. So this is why I'm a board member, but that's not that. I'm just I'm just a radio maker, basically, because there's a sense of collectiveness. So we take decisions as well together. There are some people who are responsible, of course, for like each Monday at Radio Frappo. You have first Monday, second Monday, third Monday, fourth Monday, and then the extra ones, the fifth Monday. So you have people who are responsible for that. But basically, I couldn't explain exactly to you how it really works, because it just works. It's just like there's something like open space. Nobody knows how it works, but at the end of the day, it does work, because we have been broadcasting for quite a while. And just when you talk about open space, the idea came from a West African village. So follow what I'm saying. Do you understand what I mean? So we have this way of that is also finding always new ways to be able to bring ourselves together. To, sometimes to have a lot of fun, sometimes to have very heated discussion about standards, about what should be done, what should not be done, the way we should express ourselves, the way we should not express ourselves. But it's something that is very lively.
Yeah, Ayosha, the next question I want to address to you, because you and THF, you have been like going a different way from the beginning. You choose to be an internet radio, but also, of course, like a physical hub. But why did you decide to do that?
I think we started the radio a bit by accident because we wanted to do a pop-up radio and we wanted to do it with Kashmir, that were also another online radio in Berlin, but they didn't have the time. And then we were like, okay, but we kind of like the idea of bringing people together and having this bigger audience outside of this place that we have, because we just got the Torhaus, where we are still broadcasting from, at the Tempelhof Airport, the old gatekeeper's house, and it's 50 square meters, so it's very small. So we were like, it's a nice spot for doing something that can then potentially be bigger, because our whole idea is also to maybe grow into the bigger building. And then we just started it, and we're just doing it we wanted to do it for 3 weeks. And then in the end, all the people that were doing the shows for the 3 weeks were like, but this is great, this is nice, we get together, we do this show, we stay here afterwards, and then we were like, okay, then let's all meet, Luis was there as well, and start a radio station and figure out how we do this. And then we were starting from there and grew, and now we were operating for 6 years, I think, yeah.
Okay, I'm still really interested about like the difference between digital and analog radio, kind of. So maybe Nathalie, you can elaborate a little bit on that, why analog reception is so fundamental, kind of, and also like a colleague of yours recently said that there is a danger of radio nostalgia. Maybe you can say a bit more about that.
This was an interview we did in an article, and I was telling her that I think that actually, although in the north, I mean in the world, the analog radio is extremely important still. It's the medium itself. It's more than TV, anything else, and it also plays an extreme role also in war zones, in guerrilla zones, so the radio it's only in the global north that you think that the analog radio is over, and DBR come, and digital radio, and all of these. And in a way we accepted that, even if the people who like me, the dinosaurier who still cut it with machines, tape machines, they think that this analog radio has another quality than to be on digital. But let's put this aside. Let's think what it is. Actually, it's only free. The message is transmitted one time on an analog wave, one time on a digital wave. It's nothing different, actually. Live is live. Pre-recorded is podcast. It's called podcast now. Before we called it feature, Hörspiel, I don't know what. Or now it's on demand. Yeah, in the digital. But the digital is controlled nowadays. And I mean, we just saw it in Iran. They cut it off the whole communication. And the digital, we think that it's kind of, it was in the 90s when it started, it was like, wow, this is the free world, and we can all go digital. And of course, you could go and do a radio. I mean, if you do a frequency radio, it's impossible. You need to ask the TLM, you need to ask the rights. So it's, in a way, it's something which is easy to do, to get digital radio. But they can cut it off, and they can control it, and the algorithm control it. So my thinking is like, where are we now? And maybe we have to come back to analog radios. And because the frequencies are free, because they were given away now, we could pirate them again with a mini broadcasting, with a kind of narrow broadcasting system. So this was actually the idea. But then the nostalgia, it's not to have the little box back we have in our grandfather's home, maybe yes, but we can also think about new radio transmitter, which are ecologically, they need another electricity, maybe, because also electricity can be a problem. And we can think about new receivers. What does it mean actually to broadcast? Maybe it's a community. Maybe it's only a community, we listen to each other. So it's only to think the radio again, and maybe in these times now, with all the control of the digital, to rethink it. This was the idea.
Talking about Iran, I just figured out that you had like your show yesterday, and you had 2 guests from Iran in your show. And I'm also like interested because also Refuge Worldwide is also like music-based, and you also have like music features, and how you curate your show between like music and
Yes,
resistance
absolutely.
voices.
First of all, like very beautifully said, like Nathalie, I also like resonate with that because I started doing radio because actually my dad built like a radio from a can of biscuits in the 80s in his bedroom. So that was like inspiring enough. Like, and also I feel like, and I believe that like the spirit of community radio beyond the semantics is in the word community. It's like made by the people for the people. It's like inherently punk. It's DIY spirit. So that's this like independent and like the freedom of imagination that really like gives the vision of hope. Connected to that, yes, I have run this show on refuge. I had like the opportunity and the privilege to host guests from all around the world. The show is called Voices of Resilience. And I pitched the idea to the radio that was welcomed very warmly because I felt like a urgency in the way the media misconstruct and like portrays misleading realities that are completely detached from what like actually is going on and from like people's struggles. I reflected on the fact that I wanted to give voice to people our age who come from the country, who have roots, like their origins are from a country of the world, and through their lenses, through their activism, and like not necessarily just activists, but literally like through their advocacy and their life journeys, we could have understood what is actually going on and like their feedback, their experience, their struggles. So this has happened like, and to me, like up to this day is an extremely humbling experience in the most constructive possible sense. Refuge to me and this show is a learning curve where I can like inform, educate myself, speak from a privileged position as a cis white queer woman who was born and raised in Europe. And I feel like this can even like in a tiny way, but like serve a purpose in contributing for the community. The show yesterday, yes, so it's the third year. We're in season 3. And I had the honor to host voices from all over the world: Ukraine, Sudan, Congo, Latin America, Kyrgyzstan, Iran, Lebanon, Syria. Everyone who was on the show has like really touched my heart and like contributed to my personal growth, not just professional. And yesterday, yes, I had 2 sociologists and PhD researchers from the University of Berlin. They studied in Tehran. And yesterday, yes, they came on the show because, like exactly like Nathalie correctly observed, there's been a power outage, an electricity cut, and like the social media was like cut. So there's been an obscurance of the news. And it's jarring and horrifying to know that something like a massacre and like people are dying in the streets is happening, but there's no news. And it's not communicated, and it's not spoken, and you are here watching and knowing about it. So yes, they came on the show, and their witness was very powerful and insightful. So if you want, like it's gonna be uploaded online in a couple of days if you wanna listen back. But yes, it was extremely beautiful. They just shared, obviously, like what the Iranian population asks for right now, which is like freedom, democracy, and like the revolution, the end of the regime.
Yeah, thank you for sharing your thoughts
Thank
on this. Like, I'm also super interested because you just said how THF was founded, or how the radio got out of like the cultural reuse, the idea of cultural reuse that Tempelhofer felt, and yeah, I'm interested in how you translate this like strong local background also to the programming, maybe in your radio shows.
Of course. I mean, we have a very local focus. We ask people to do the show in the space, mainly, and don't have it pre-recorded. Because we also really wanted to, I mean, we created the whole space for exchange purposes. We were not coming from a radio background. And then we figured, because we were like tackling this huge topic of the use of the field and the building, and then we figured that radio format works very nice for communicating it, and also as a very informal get-together, because you have a panel talk like this, but it's a radio show, so people are listening, and they're maybe also in the space, but it's a bit more informal in this setting. So this worked quite well for us, and then yeah, what was the question? Sorry.
No, I think you elaborated on it quite well, but like it's the same at Refuge Worldwide, right? It's in Niemetsstraße. So yeah. How does it work there? Like, do you you host your shows and people come there and hang out, and what do you like?
The structure has evolved throughout the years. So thanks to this fundraiser, because we're talking about community radios, so made by the people, like the audience is like a integrating like element of this like ecosystem, which is a whole. The radio wouldn't exist without the people who support the community radio. So thanks to a fundraiser at the end of last year, Refuge was able to change their where we broadcast from. So it was like before it was on Weserstraße, now there's a new space. Everyone's welcome. So it's also a co-working space. It's a cafe. It's big enough to host like also workshops, panels. So there's talks happening. Everyone is welcome, even just to hang out. It's a space of, it's a meeting point and a melting pot at the same time, because like what is very fascinating and got me really close to Refuge, you know, even like at the very start, like what motivated me to pitch and be like, would you like to work with me? Was the fact that like they have a sincere, genuine interest and attention and care for marginalized communities. They privilege world music over club sound, which is quite unusual for Berlin and a Berlin radio. And also, it's like the importance like towards migrant perspectives, queer stories, all those voices that otherwise couldn't be amplified and deserve to be heard, and the stories that deserve to be told. So yes, it's open to everyone. If you come, you get to meet like who's broadcasting in that moment. So there's a constant exchange between speakers, radio hosts, guests, musicians. It's beautiful.
My feeling always about community radio, if you compare it now with other formats like broadcasting and big radios I have worked in, it's that actually the fact that we come together to do radio together is nearly more important than the broadcast. It's, I mean, not the but the fact that we broadcast. It's like, maybe it's even not broadcasting, maybe it's, you don't even know which is a community, but maybe you can reach others in the language, like you said, or something. But I think there's only people who did radio know what for power it has to create together a program, no, and to sit together and to, and it's a fantastic thing, because what is the difference being in a club together or doing radio together? And I think there is a magic about this being on air or maybe being heard, or I don't know what you think about it, but it's something I feel about community radios. Yeah.
Yes, definitely. I think it's also the potential of reaching worldwide audience and also having friends that are somewhere else listening and having direct feedback with them. I think this is also something like you have a chat, we also have a chat, so people really directly communicate with the people in the studio and listen to it, and you really build this community of listeners, but also people coming to the space, so it's a bit more close than FM radio, I would say. I mean, we were also having the FM frequency. We were also on 88.4 on the weekends, and it was, it's just, I mean, it was not the technical aspect of it. We were just sending it somewhere, and then it was broadcasted. But it also, you feel it. It's a different audience. Like we were, because it reaches more people from a different age group. Because internet radio is very for young people and people that really know. But if you're on FM, people can just stumble upon it.
What was the feedback from then? Did you?
I don't know. We had a lot
from
of. We also had shows in Turkish, and then a very old. I remember this because a very old Turkish lady wrote us that how much she liked the show, and she never heard like it was revolutionary Kurdish songs in the show, and she wrote us she wrote a very long text about this, and I was like, oh, that's very nice. She would have never just found us somewhere in the internet or on Instagram or whatever, because she was just sitting at home switching to her old radio, and then she found us. So yeah.
How are you organized in Potsdam at Frappo? Is it also like a space where people can hang out or be together? And can you take us with us?
Yes. So when we're talking about some people giving feedback, I remember that that was in Potsdam once. That was the director of the Chamber of Commerce of Potsdam who phoned me and said that I think I've heard something about the Chamber of Commerce on free radio in Potsdam. So you have a wide, a very broad range of people who are actually listening, and that is the power of radio as well. Because in internet, each individual is watching, is normally looking in internet, but then you have the power of listening together the same content that is with the same vibration, so to say. So, and that is the first thing, the first collective experience that you have. And in Potsdam, we broadcast from Freiland, which is a whole cultural area as such, which offers a wide range of activities from self-defense to resistance to oppressive structures in many ways. So this is also a place which has a very particular connotation, which has a very particular, I would say, also vibration. And maybe what you were saying is about this diversity. When we have a look at, next to Frappo, who are the radios as well, Radio Woltersdorf, Sendes Freies Ruppin, Radio Pax, Refugee Information Radio, Freies Bürgerradio, Funk, Ginsen. So you have various communities. You have the communities of people who may not see. You have the community of very small children. You have the reality of old people. You have all kinds of communities with all kinds of orientations of any kind. So, I mean, this is what is the core of community radio. And not to forget, there was an exhibition recently at the museum in one of the museums in Potsdam, and that is Signal of Powers, because you were talking about Signal of Power, because you were talking about
it was my
power.
assistant who did this exhibition. Yeah.
Okay, you see, so you have because there was a place in Nauen, which is somewhere in Brandenburg, and there was also a place in Windhoek and in Togo. And from this place in Nauen, there were signals that were sent out. And it was not for our well-being, in Togo and in Namibia. Actually, this signal in Namibia enables actually the genocide, because before that, the German soldiers were there, could not really locate the people. But they could locate the people, but there are difficulties to have a very quick means of communication in between them. So with these signals, suddenly it was possible. So we can see this dimension, and this is why it's so important for communities. I went to Cameroon as well, that was last year, and I visited one of the radio stations there. And it's like when you enter, a radio in Potsdam and somewhere else. It's like you enter a cavern and you are, entering the studio, and many things can happen. So it's a kind of experience too. And then I visited the studio, and it's also a piece of resistance, because basically our languages, we have 2,000 of languages in the whole of the African continent. That means a third of all the languages of the whole world. So we're very rich in terms of languages. This is why we only had a very few actually during our program. And when we visited, that is teamwork, you see, collective dimension, radio. So when visiting this radio, which is actually as well fighting for rights as well, for land rights, or fighting for education, because when we talk about and if I may, I would just say a few words about why was Mwasu created. It was one day. There was a whole story about, that was the period when AIDS really started to spread. And there was the whole story about, on German radio, German television, yes, the Germans are helping. Then I was watching as well French-speaking television. Yes, the white French, I'm talking about Germans and white French, are helping. And I was saying, oh. And then And then there was something about South Africa, but they say that, yes, the people are looking for, untouched women, young girls, because they think that it will cure of AIDS. And I think, oh. And then I said, with this load, I was completely loaded with negative energy. And this negative energy has to be channeled somewhere. If not, it may not be good, not for you if you cross my world, or not for myself. So, this is all, because that was exactly, it's why we combine very local news and experiences and international and global issues, because this is where we talked in the on the radio about the what South Africa, India, and I think it was Brazil started to do in order to cut down on the cost of medicine, and also to use traditional medicine in order for people to have a much better immune system. That was the case with Corona, by the way. So this is this positive narrative about ourselves. This is what is empowering, and that is something that you normally rather find in and hear and experience in community radios, and less, very much less, very, very, very much less in commercial radios.
I wanted to add something about the potential also to broadcast in your language. And I thought about something when I went around the world to learn about radio and how it affected the politics in the countries. In South Africa, Sekiba, a professor who worked on it, he said a very interesting story, because actually the Radio Bantu in South Africa used they built radios in the different languages of the regions, but to control actually the regions and the people in their own languages. But because they could not understand and control all the languages, they started to filtrate messages like in their own languages in a kind of resistance against. And the moderator said always, listen with your third ear, like you have to listen between the lines, what is actually said. And I liked it because even in controlled radio stations, you can have a resistance by using your proper language culture in the third ear, and the songs, listenership, and songs and actually, music, which is very important.
I think what inspired me as well about this in this multi-linguistic approach is actually the experience in South Africa. I was in South Africa 2001 for the UN Conference Against Racism. And with with the Declaration and Plan of Action of Urban, and now the UN Decade for People of African Descent, and I could relax and listen, and actually don't understand nothing about a few words, because actually some Zulu languages are the same as Douala language, because we are Bantu. Tu means we have a kind of a small pieces of brilliant deity. It's nice, isn't it? So we all like this. So we all human beings. This was Bantu, Muntu, from Tu. That was very short. But what inspired me is the fact that you can listen to the news in the 11 languages. In 11 state languages. Of official languages of South Africa. There are many more. So in Germany, it's really under development because there's only one. So this is why some people don't understand. We have languages, and some people here, they have only one language. Sorry for you.
We have our dialects.
Yes, of course. And and this is also a part of this inheritance, to think that language is mostly in the plural form. That is, you have many. You grow up with 1, 2, 3, 4. It's just normal. If you see people with just one plus maybe one dialect, it's actually very poor.
Yeah, you just talked a little bit about the project, Listening to the World, 100 Years of Radio, where you traveled to different places over the world and connected with radio stations. So there was one interesting example I found, Radio Caso from Argentina, and they faced heavy financial problems, but also like political threats. So just to give you an idea, they were first instructed not to use terms like feminism or climate change, and afterwards they were completely shut down.
But
more or less.
they're ongoing, but in a different form. So Radio Caso, actually when we were in Montevideo, we had the workshop, about listening workshop, because we tried to do it by listening. We didn't want it to come with the research, but by listening to the people. So actually we did listening workshop where people of the whole region came. And in South America it was interesting because in the pandemic, in Corona, like all over South America, new radio station went out online on digital. Radio Caso is one, but there's Radio Tsunami, there's like 10 or 12 or more. And they are all coming from the cultural background and from a kind of a little bit resistance or more active. And it was the first time in this workshop that they all met together, which was really interesting because it's huge, South America, so they have not the opportunity to come. And in a way they are ongoing, but they are fragile. And I think we should not end the evening without talking about the fragility of community radios in general, because normally they are not paid. Radio Caso was paid by the government because it was a sound art center, and actually they started the radio as a program of the sound art center in the Corona time. But they did something very clever when the government just changed and shut it down the radio because it was too controversial or too... Yeah, it was too critical. They transported the archives on, I don't remember, but on a neutral platform, so that the Radio Caso is still going on or still available online as an archive. And now they are broadcasting, for example, by Terra del Fuego from an island, from an old towel. I don't think that they're finished, but it is like, this is the advantage of radio, that it's cheap, quickly done. You can change your radio station. You are going to the Temple of Fate, no? Or then you can go tomorrow somewhere else. You can take your antenna, you can take your receivers. This is why pirate radio are so, they are radios, because you have to switch the position all the time because they will jam you, you know. So in a way, this is a good thing about the radio. The other thing, it's very fragile, and they can disappear from one day to the other, or they can be jammed, or they can be closed, and yeah, and the money is always missing, and it's always based on people who do it because freiwillig, that they want to do it. This is also something which is a fragility of community radios in general.
Yeah, and you said it's not only like in Argentina or all over the world, but also it happens in Germany actually, because you might face like big problems with your radio from Bauhaus-Universität, right?
Yeah, we have a frequency, Bauhaus FM, which is a student frequency, student radio, but it's on Radio Lotte, and Radio Lotte is a community radio, but existing since long time, but community radio paid very little by the Thüringer Landesmedienanstalt, but we had in 2019, we had already this coup with the FDP and the AfD on power, and one of the first things they did was to close the Radio Lotte. It didn't happen finally because we shifted back, but we don't know, in 2 years we could have had the AfD now again in government. There was this Misstrauensvotum just now, so we don't know what will happen, and the first thing they close, it's already on the list, is the community radio. So also in our countries it can happen, yeah, that we get closed, and yeah, what should we say?
Yeah, how's the situation at THF Radio? So, like, how is your financial system? And you just got a funding, right, to renovate the place?
Yeah, but it's a bit. It was actually 5 years ago, but we took very long to renovate. We are very lucky. That's
what I thought, because it was just finished, right?
It was finished 2014. So it's, yeah. But we were very lucky because we got this place as an intermediate use, but in the contract it said if we renovate we can stay longer and we don't have to pay rent. So we managed to renovate, and now we have a nice space and we can stay for 8 more years, I think. without paying rent, and we are organized also in a way that everyone has to contribute and work. So if you become part of our radio, we are over 100 members, you have to run your show yourself and upload it and do everything basically yourself, and we try to build the framework to make it as easy as possible, and everyone has to pay a little fee to be actually on the radio. We don't kick anyone out that can pay the fee, but we ask you to pay a fee. And with this, we can just cover our running cost. But of course, we are also very, I put in a lot of work and only occasionally get paid if we have projects. So actually for this building project, I never got paid because it wasn't allowed. It was European funding and the project management wasn't paid. Yeah.
Yeah, how is it at Frapo actually? Because even for DAB+, the license is quite expensive, right? So you have to pay quite a lot. How do you fund yourself, or how do you?
Yes,
where do you get the money from?
Of course, the financial issue is always an issue. We are lucky that we are at Freies and that we have conditions that are really friendly. But it's not the case for all the studio, because sometimes you are in the building and overnight anything can happen. So it's always a touch of uncertainty. You have the licenses, you have to pay, and of course you have the whole equipment. So there's some grants that are also given by MBB, but still you have this. You still have to be able as well to deal with all the technical issues. So you have all of a technical team, which is also not paid. Some of the people who are dealing with technique are here among the audience. So we say thank you as well. And it's a whole of logistics. And radio is always a collective dimension. And if you experience being together in the studio, so you have the people dealing with the technique, and at the same time, these are the same people who can sometimes be talking, and sometimes you have all concerts in the area, and then times you make fun. We have been shouting in the studio. We've been weeping because, of course, people depart from us, so we also cry. We've been crying, we've been laughing, we've been making jokes and doing, but so this is the whole life. This is a microcosm of life in the studio. So this is this dimension that unfortunately you cannot even have until this extent when you're just online, because you may be just in front of your desk and do all kinds of little things there, but it's not the same kind of collective experience, and that has also a price. If you want to make workshops, if you want to buy even the devices in order to be able to go from person to person and to be able to record, then it has a price. So, social affairs has always a price. So of course we share. Of course there are some grants that are given, but as you were saying before, we would like to have our license back, and to be able to reach out to as many people as possible, and that has a price. To apply, for instance, just to apply, you have to pay. You have to pay. So it's not something which is free of charge. No, there is a price attached to it.
If I may add to this, I think I completely understand. And when you spoke about being in the studio booth or just being in the radio as a collective experience, it's because it really is a collective power together. There is a collective memory in doing radio. There is shared responsibility. There is this sense of mutual aid and helping each other and standing in solidarity with each other. And that's where the beauty of amplifying voices that otherwise will go unheard feels like extremely emotional. I've had the opportunity to host guests who have, because my show, I never run out of topics, sadly, because my show focuses on countries of the world which are affected by dramatic events or like the tragedy of conflicts or civil wars. So my guests, I've had people who have lost family members because of bombings, people who have lived 9 lives in one before the age of 20, who have had to overcome unimaginable struggles and hardships in their journeys, and have been, I really have goosebumps speaking about this, because like when you said weeping, that really touched me, because it is true. There's been so many instances where I had to hold back my tears for how courageous and brave they are to just like come on the radio, because it's not easy to be interviewed. It's not easy to do public speaking, especially when you're touching a fragile, delicate, traumatic event and topic, so you can get easily overwhelmed and distracted. So I very much value like their braveness and the courage that they have. To connect on like the fundings and not fundings, Refuge has a bit of a different structure, because there's a team that works as like the solid, let's say like constant team behind the radio, but all of us artists and speakers, we do it on a voluntary basis. That doesn't take away the fact that like the radio becomes also like an extremely powerful platform to collect funds. Just a practical example, I have the pleasure for, in November, I hosted for the Trans Day of Remembrance a Jordanian Palestinian trans teacher, trans woman educatrix and teacher, Joanna. She lives and works in Berlin, and through her interview at Voices of Resilience, she managed to share like also like the fundraising link for her gender affirming care, cures and surgeries. So even if maybe there's not like visible money behind it, there's ways to raise money for the good purpose, thanks to the radio.
But I want to say there's a weird imagination about radio, because radio is invisible. Yeah? So we always think radio doesn't need money or it's nothing. But actually, you just talked about noun. I mean, if you see the infrastructures of radio who were built in the colonial times to control the world between the countries of the colony and the places in the colonies, it's huge buildings and it's huge antennas needed to broadcast, you know. And now also the internet, it's a lot of money which goes in the speicher capacities, you know, and all of this. It's not invisible, and this is a mistake we have. We think it's invisible, but it's not. Also, the digital is costing, and it is also not. It's polluting, and all of this. So we also have to ask ourselves, what kind of medium are we using when we use digital? What for cost? How ecologically is it and not? No, all these kind of things, and this misunderstanding that it's invisible and it's for this not an object, and it's why it's not valuable, makes that it's underpaid in a way, no? You have to say, I mean, TV, film, everything is 4 times more paid. And I don't talk about visual arts. Huh? If you see radio art or visual arts, it's not a relation, because this kind of not grasping, the impossibility to grasp the waves. Yeah.
But you have also free TV. I mean, free TV in terms of also community TV, which is also. But I mean, what you were saying about, you know, radio works with the voice. So this is something very particular at the same time, and it enables also people who would not like to be seen to still be able to talk. And you can, in the studio, you can make something like where people feel like they can talk. They feel comfortable. And the trauma is also being taken care. So, for instance, in Boasu means at home, actually. And we focus on the Pan-African world, meaning that the African continent and all the African communities throughout the world. So as well, we had people from the Caribbean. We had people from various countries in the African continent and somewhere else. And you know, it's like when you see that, okay, we want to invite, I don't know, maybe 1 or 2 women's moderators, and after that, that's it, you know. But the more you explore. And you explore, so history now, this month is also Black History Month. So we explore the history. We also explore Afrofuturism, and but at the same time we explore experiments. So what could be if, you know, and see also what's happening in Spain, for instance, where the people manage to make sure that when they're actually trying to make the people being documented. So we show we also focus our attention on the positive examples that can be found throughout the world, and also drawing this experience and according to our own perspectives, and that is also not one perspective, but perspectives. So in election is very funny because sometimes we interview people who are on that side, then other people who are on this side, and people who are on this other side, and we just ask them not to insult each other in their various languages, because it may cause a problem if somebody, if somebody really understands it. But this is also kind of mutual respect to be able to have heated debated, if it's not everybody at the same place, but to have these various perspectives.
Yeah, thank you so much. Talking about community, of course we want to open the discussion, and I heard also a lot of experts are in the audience, so feel free to raise your voice and ask questions if you have. We have a microphone here. Yeah, there, second row. No, we have one here.
Yeah, thank you all for the nice discussion. We were talking about money, of course, and the funding issue and all that. And I was wondering if you think, or what you think about the freedom that non-commercial radio. I mean, I think many community radios are non-commercial, and is there any freedom that lies in this aspect of having no pressure of selling or having a huge audience or whatever?
Yeah, actually, this is very important that you raise it, because I worked a lot also in the official radio station, which we would think are free. No, I mean, you are in a newspaper. But, and you have, of course, certain restrictions, what is allowed to be broadcast, not, and da-da-da. So I think this is an important fact, to stay free, and not to be paid by, maybe commercial issues or things. Yeah.
I think that from having been part of a kind of kind of supervision board for non-community radio and also state-maintained radio, I should think that what is enabled us is to make our free decision about the various people and the various groups and the various communities that can be on board. That is a fair thing. And also, if somebody at some point says something that may not be suitable, to find internal way to deal with it. And that is very important. This learning aspect of it. And of course, as I was saying in the beginning, it is a way to learn to work collectively. And of course, it works the way it works. But it's extremely empowering. And I think this is also an example for other kind of initiatives. So it has really this dimension. And at the same time, I don't know where people, as I said, with so many different foregrounds, backgrounds, sidegrounds, and undergrounds, come together to do something with a single purpose, and meet and discuss, and as I said, from people who are just coming there, making their radio, putting a few plays and go, and from the people who are actually thinking what is going to happen when we move from FM to DAB. What are the technical aspect of it? and then they talk in a language that I don't understand actually. But I mean, and then we think about, some other people think about what are the other aspects, because mean that, okay, some people maybe in Hohenhalbig do not have the equipment to be able to follow DAB, and you know about internet in Brandenburg. It's maybe quicker in Kenya, in some parts of Kenya. So I mean, you have this aspect of it. So you have people who have. We are thinking together about how it is possible to make our programs accessible, and that is the very aspect of it. So this is part of freedom, and sometimes part of constraints. But I mean, the greatest part is freedom.
Yeah. And the sense of independence is fundamental because, like, of course, money is a concern, especially like going through like this last decade of like insane economic recession and like a rising cost of living, and also like the rent that goes higher and higher. So like getting kicked out from like even like a studio, physical studio. At the same time, there's a matter of ethos behind what a community radio does and believes in. If there's this like obviously this like higher cost, like if you flatten yourself to become more mainstream and to be legible for the mainstream, then at the same time you're sacrificing your integrity and your dignity, which is like what you need to keep in mind as a priority. You can't like really like consider yourself consistent enough and independent enough when you are in a way like signing like the Faust pact with the devil in a way. Of course there are like tempting offers all the time. There's like brand partnerships, there's collaboration left, right and center, but it's about like what you embody. And if you do want to be representative of something meaningful for the community, you have to be trustworthy enough and like believed by your community. You will lose your community supports and love also if like you're losing that freedom, intellectual freedom.
You want to add something, Ayosha?
Yeah, I was just thinking on and on about it. I mean, we were very early deciding that we didn't want to take any sponsorship by brands. But then we are also always, we work a lot with funding, with different funding programs. But then I was also thinking sometimes I even like the projects more that come up and the shows without funding. Because, I mean, the most amazing thing would be if someone would say, here is money, you do a great job. Here's money for the structure, keep on just doing what you do and keeping the structure alive. But the reality of funding is also that you have to come up with a project. You cannot just write, hey, we're doing a radio, give us money. You have to come up with something special, and then you have to do the special programming, and then you have extra work. And then it's also a project with money involved, and all the other work that we do on the side is no money involved, and then sometimes that's even more fun, because people are like, oh yeah, I know this person, and no one has to get paid, and you just invite all of them. And everyone, and there's no restraints and no format that it has to get into, and people can just come up with something. And this is sometimes even better.
Yeah, and maybe.
But only to add, for example, Radio Lotte, they have a kind of founding from the TLM, which is very low, but there are like 2-3 people, not much paid, but like the basics, And I think without this, it would not exist over 10 or 12 or 20 years, because all the rest, all the others are free and they do it out of, and I don't think that they are restricted too much. I would not say. So I think sometimes it's nevertheless, we pay a lot for the official radio station. I mean, you can do crowdfunding, but maybe the listener could pay because they like your radio, they like the direction, no? But I mean, there are certainly models to find to make it a little easier for community radios, no, to persist or to stay. Yeah. I don't know.
But yeah, no, that's the kind of funding that I meant. I know Lotte, and they have this funding for organizing mainly.
Yeah, it's more like one people, 2 people to one technician and one organizer.
That's great.
Yeah. But I think that at Frappoir, as far as I know, nobody's paid. But I mean, you need the equipment. You need, for instance, what is sometimes useful is people. I mean, for the transport, so that they come to the or in the night when I mean, for this kind of activities or for the workshops. But when workshops are given, then the people refund. I mean, pay. I mean. managed so that I shouldn't be saying that so loud, but anyway, at some point it benefits also the organization. And I think that when we have also really heated debates, I'm talking about, for instance, Gaza. I'm talking about the conflict nobody talks about. May it be in Sudan, may it be at the Horn of Africa, Democratic Republic of Congo, and a few others. Then it's our job is no job. It's just free. So we're not going to lose our job. I mean, at some point, somebody can think of closing the radio. Can happen. But we're not going to lose our job because we talked about genocide, for instance. And that is important because, and we're not going to lose it when we say that the pushbacks, which are supposed not to exist at all, have to stop on the Mediterranean Sea, or we are signing that is other kinds of forced kinds of pacts with militia in the northern Africa, etc., etc. So it's possible really to have another narrative, another discourse, other perspectives on radio, and that is extremely valuable because we've all experienced these few months, and it's very important to be able to, and we are committed as Free Radio committed to peace. We're committed to, of course, to anti-discrimination of any kind. I'm repeating it, of any kind. And at the same time, we are there also for social justice, and that has to be said clearly. So these are values that we all share if we believe in the charter.
And not to forget you.
Yeah, we said we're about debating, so let's debate.
Yeah, but I mean, the thing is that you're mixing up different kinds of models and you're all calling them community radio, and the conditions and the guidelines are completely different. Like Radio Lotte in Weimar is a Bürgerradio,
yeah.
And that's not a Freies Radio, and that's not a community radio as the community radios that are on the internet. And also the conditions like who can ask for funding and which kind of funding, that's basically very, very different. So putting it all together in one is interesting, but wrong.
Yeah, thank you. I'm talking about community radio. I'm talking about community-based radio. This is the one I'm talking about because this is the one I'm believing. I also believing it's the ones I'm part of. This is the only thing I wanted to say.
Okay, well, my question is because you called it participative Medien. So I would like to know, you're all talking about your own communities that you're representing, and you're basically hanging out with your friends in your radio, but what is the outreach? Like, what is your connection apart from broadcasting with the communities? Because that's an issue with the Freie Radios, for instance, after we lost the FM radio. So I'm an activist with Freie Radios Berlin, and that, for instance, we have people in Marzahn living in camps that can't listen to their own programs anymore because they don't get radios that receive DAB, for instance.
Mm-hmm. This is what we are saying. And we know that there are also very right wings, free radio. That is
and they also try to get the same kind of funding as community radios, although they have a completely different outlook. And I mean, this is one of the discussions that we had in Berlin, like why not like Kashmir or Reboot, why don't they join the Charta of the Freie Radios and to basically stand for the values that they probably work with, but they're not officially signing to it.
So we have...
Okay, and we're not, I mean, we of course we're hanging around with friends. So you are talking about the outreach, but not only with friends. We are, we are. You have to think. We are broadcasting from Monday to Sundays with. I don't know. I've not. Maybe somebody here knows it, but with so many different redactions. I mean, groups, and the outreach we're talking about it. Of course, now with internet is farther if you have access to internet. This is why we were saying, we're going to repeat it, isn't it? Bring us back to FM, and because of course people had their radio, and sometimes they had been funded as well through programs, so that they can have devices to be able to listen to the radio, and now it's no longer possible. So, I mean, the outreach is the whole region, because as I said, from the from the sister who is standing in the kitchen, up to the one who came here to oversee under these kind of conditions, and is now and has opened her own business, up to the person who is a student, who is in all. You have people in all kinds of areas of life who are listening to the radio. So we have definitely an outreach. If not, we will not be there. Actually, would be.
I agree with you, and to answer your question, and yes, I also wouldn't describe it or maybe portray it as hanging out with friends. I mean, that can be the beauty of it, because people who work for the same radio, and even with our guests, we do become friends because we are building human relationships. I've become friends with some of my guests, we hang out. But the outreach, to get back to that, it's the fact that I understand your point and I see it it's fully valid, and maybe from the way maybe this was worded, it sounded a bit more elitist, meaning you need to have access to obviously digital media to listen to a digital radio. You need to have a laptop. You need to have internet connection. Where the outreach goes beyond the journalistic approach, that lays in the fact that you can have guests, but you can also invite your guests to come to an event, not necessarily listen to the show. They can take part to a night or a panel, or they can just feel seen and heard and just feel really welcomed in the community just by speaking, talking. Let them feel heard, let them feel held really and represented, their voice is amplified. Just to give you a concrete example, speaking of local community and the impact, my guests who were on my show definitely belong to a privileged category, so to say, because they had the opportunity to leave Iran and come to study in Berlin, and they're PhD researchers, so higher level of education. That doesn't mean that they haven't had the opportunity through this show to talk to their community, to go back home and share with other people, share with other Iranians living in Berlin, go on Karmarstrasse, literally to restaurants or other shops, to talk about their experience and to share point of views and say hey, there's an inner conflict between Republicans, monarchists, instill the conversation, start the conversation. So it really goes beyond just a hangout. I feel there's more power in the words and in the standing together as one. So yes, I also believe that there's a bigger outreach. It all stays in how much you bring it out in the world, and you don't make it really elitist and just oh, I'm in my little castle, I do radio.
And the reason why we need as well the equipment is to be able to go out and give the device to people so that they can record their own voice and the voices of other people and make their own and express themselves and collect as well the voices of other people. So that is the outreach.
Yeah, that's the idea of free radio, to empower people also to be not only a guest but a maker.
Absolutely.
Yes.
I agree with you.
So for us also, you can apply to have a radio show, and how we are organized. We are a German association, e.V., and if you do a radio show with us, you have to join the association, and then you basically can. We try to keep the hierarchies flat. Of course, there is hierarchies, but we have different groups that do all the work around the radio, so you can join the curation team that then looks for how to organize the program. You can join our website team to program the website and everything. So we try to keep the structures open. Right now we are onboarding 30 new people for new radio shows, and we are over 120. And I think what you are talking about is also, it's like we were also, when we started in this free radio and getting into it, and then we were a bit more like, no, we want to organize first our own structures, and we keep it more in internet radio and try to open this channel for more people.
Yeah, and you were also like talking about knowledge transfers before, which I think is quite important at this point. So, but do we have more questions? Yes.
Hi. Hello. Thank you. I'm also from Freies Radio's Berlin. Disclaimer. I think this is interesting because what we see is in like Berlin, many different communities of radio makers, and this really passionate interest in radio, building communities around radio, communities building radio. So we see this happening. That's interesting to have this conversation together. And what I'm interested in, sort of like this level of infrastructure, and we were talking about funding and organization, infrastructure. I have a two-layered question. One to the Berlin practitioners is, Refuge Worldwide and the Temple of Radio is, because I'm familiar obviously with the Freie Radios Deutschland Charter, like I know what this means, right? We don't have to, you can look it up on the website. It's a certain like parameters of, which we've heard mentioned already a lot by Marianne, right? The principles of radio. So my question to you would be like, what are like the parameters or the guidelines of your radio infrastructure, especially as you grow, right? Like, and then also, then to our expert from Weimar, what did you see globally? Is there a trend where community radios do produce in other places national guidelines or like come together, or is this like a German-specific phenomenon? I'd also be interested to know like how do community radios interact? Because what we have here is many different community radios in Berlin. So yeah, this is like there's sort of two levels to this question.
One of you go first, or maybe you can think about it. Yeah,
okay. The first thing is I don't know in English the different terms like Bürgerradio, community radio, in English all the different terms. So if I talk about the different community radios in the world, I would not know how to translate it correctly. So sorry for this first. But I would say that I could find a little bit all different kinds of things. So for example, a lot of I would say independent or radios are also from indigenous communities, and they reach from indigenous communities who have a help by the state, but then they are also very independent in their saying, because actually they're fighting for the right of the indigents, of women. For example, La Voz Indigena, it's a women radio. So they don't get controlled in what they say, but they get help for the infrastructure and for the radio by foundings in a way. Yeah. Then in Sagada, in the mountains of the Philippines, actually they don't get anything, and it's really hard because they have storms, and then the antenna which is on the mountain is breaking down. Then the people from the village have to go and to build it up. I mean, it's a completely different. I left my technique there because they even didn't have a recording device to make interviews, talking about interviews. Nevertheless, only the fact that the people from the indigenous communities from the region can go there, the women, and express their needs and express and talk together is extremely important, and that they can talk in their own languages, because they are not allowed normally to talk on the media their own languages. So this is extremely important. Then in South Africa, in Zimbabwe, we met a woman. She was building, in the name of Zimbabwean state, community radios in the different languages on the borders. So you find a little bit everything until pirate radios, which in the FARC time were the resistance radio, pirate radio in Indonesia still existing. Myanmar, the radio was very important in the coup. It was a radio who was informing the people about, what happened actually in the countryside regions. And the radio is still important also in all the war regions to inform the people about where the soldiers are, where the victims are, where the food is. So we found it a lot of different things. So I don't want to put it in a pot. Maybe I do a little. I created a transcultural listening map. It's an online site, where people can enter their own projects around listening and radio to network a little bit between all this worldwide. And there you can find actually all this radio station, all the project I talked about, also the Namibian one you talked. So if you're interested to go deeper, you can come on this website. I can give you a card afterwards.
That's sweet.
Was a long answer.
Yeah. Take your time. Does one of you want to answer
the question? Yeah. At Refuge in particular, because I can speak on behalf, representing the radio today. So based on my personal experience, you were talking about parameters and limits or constraints. There's not really such of limits in a way where there's an extremely sincere and genuine creative freedom. The purpose is that to be authentic in order to serve the community. And so in myself, for example, when I invite my guests, I don't really give them any sort of guideline which can take away from their story. It's their story to tell. I'm there as a mediator, as an interviewer, so I can only take a step back and hold space for them. And in this, the radio is extremely supportive. Creative-wise, you can recommend an idea, you can get feedback, but it's always a constructive feedback and never a limiting one. So this is very important, because I feel in order, as you mentioned this keyword before, in order to make someone comfortable enough to talk and share their story with you, that's where I really encourage them to say speak your mind freely. The radio is here for that. This is a safe space of conversation. This is a platform where it's open to the world for you to talk. So this also is valuable for the music, because sound is just as powerful as words. So also in the selection of the soundtrack or the playlist that they want to play, I don't have any voice in that. I leave them complete freedom in picking. You want to play a traditional anthem, you want to play contemporary music, as long as it's something that you feel empowering for yourself and also resonating with your story. Absolute freedom, and the radio is very supportive in that. The only guideline actually is less club music, not too much dance floor, and more attention to world music and to real world stories, to make really, really sincere this, not just in words, because it's so easy to say, oh yeah, let's pay attention to marginalized stories or individuals. But that's where I repeat myself here, the integrity will be completely fractured.
So I think we would have time for one last question, and I see there's one person who already got the mic. So
yes, hello. I think it's
your
not.
turn.
Yeah. Here we go. Okay. Is there any possibility of free radios coming back to FM, AM, and if so, can we do anything about it? Because I don't want to get an internet radio. I have a normal radio, and it works. And it was so nice to just press the button and then.
Who wants to answer? Marianne?
Maybe.
No, the thing is that to broadcast you need these huge stations, and they just destroyed them mostly. But I mean, if I take an antenna and I put it on a house and it's very strong, I can broadcast and I can give you my frequency. It's what I do. We do it all the time in art context. It's not allowed in a political context because they are empty. In the moment where no radio, in Italy, for example, there is no empty radio station because they were the first with free radios, with radio. So they are full. But in Germany, especially because we left the frequencies, it's empty. So wherever I can go when we do performance with radio frequency and radio, not in Berlin. Okay, Berlin is full as well. Yeah. Okay, but in okay, sorry. So but I remember that I did also a kind of festival radio in Berlin, and we got a frequency, but it's more complicated. You have to, Veranstaltungsfrequenz, you have to ask for it. But let's say in some other parts, you can find it. You only turn, and then you find it. But the only thing, it's not allowed. But this is your decision. So I think to do these small Kiez radios, and then mini FM it's called. It's a concept of the 80s and 70s to do your mini neighbor broadcasting. Kiguro Kozawa, no, how he was called? Tetsuo Kogawa, genau. Japanese, he got famous with it, so we can do this again. Maybe we will.
So the answer is...
What? Yes, micro FM and all the movement of, yeah.
So apart from micro FM, the answer is if a frequency or frequencies become free, and if community-based radios are allowed to apply, and if there's a possibility to apply together and to be able to be granted this, then that would be basically... So first, the frequencies have to be freed, and if they're free, they should not be granted. They should be, let's put it positively, they should be granted to community-based radio. And the problem is that now we are moving towards commerciality, and this is a general trend, not only at the level of radio, and cutting down of subsidies for social purpose. So we have to. This is, as I say, Medienanstalt Berlin-Brandenburg. You can check and send nice letters, greetings from us. And maybe, there was a question of what is in the
they want the frequency back.
Yeah, I just wanted to say that would be like the perfect closing words.
Yes,
but you might have one more sentence, right? You want to say?
Yes, I just wanted to because it was the question, what is actually in the charter. So I think the 2 points which are very important is diversity, access, and also emancipatory. So we offer easy access to radio broadcasting and focus on emancipatory perspectives on society, culture, music, and politics. We work independently of commercial interests, state, and religious institutions. As a program radio station, we reflect on social structures. We reflect, thinking, and get involved. We offer everyone the opportunity to help shape public discourse on independent radio in the spirit of diversity of opinion and emancipation. Within the framework of collective decision-making structures, we guarantee independence and transparency in terms of content and counteract hierarchies. We make our content available. Now there's going to be an app, so at least 7 days, on an easy and access and non-commercial basis. The focus is on a collective, self-organized, and non-competitive way of working that reflects on and criticizes dependence on social conditions. This is why we want to broadcast at Frapo. You send your ideas. Maybe we want to see you, so you will have a little kind of a gathering, and then you can start. Because basically, we started the little group of Mwasu, that was 10 years ago.
Yeah, thank you so much. I think we need to come to an end at this point, and we discuss further charter details at the bar, because there we will have a wonderful set of Jesse G, a well-known DJ who works at Hardwax for almost 6 years now and played in renowned clubs such as Berghain, the school in Amsterdam. She's resident at Tresor and RSO, actually. And yeah, thank you for your amazing perspectives, Nathalie, Marianne, Laura, and Ayosha. Thank you for joining. And thanks also for Taz Panter Foundation for making the event possible. Don't forget Taz Panter Prize this year about Medien von unten, so you can apply for that. And also thanks a lot to Peter and his technical team for the support. And have a good evening.